To explore the human experience is to eventually confront a quiet room. In a culture built on continuous input, stillness is often treated as something to fix or fill. But when we look closer at how our minds respond to quiet, we find a scenario worth examining. Meditation is often framed as a soft, passive escape, a peaceful retreat for those seeking relaxation. But for those who value agency, discipline, and self-reliance, this framing often misses the mark. A more helpful lens might be to view meditation as a quiet test of courage. Sitting alone in a room without reaching for a phone, a task, or a distraction requires facing two immediate realities: our body's evolutionary stress response and our mind's unedited thoughts. It takes no bravery to stay perpetually busy or to react to every incoming chime. It takes a subtle, steady kind of courage to sit still, disarm your defenses, and observe what is actually happening inside your own mind. To understand why this simple act is surprisingly difficult and why it is in our best interest to do it anyway, we can explore three distinct dimensions: the biological, the psychological, and the practical. Dimension 1, the physiology of stillness. Over 300 years ago, the mathematician Blaise Pascal made a simple observation: all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. Pascal was not offering a moral judgment, he was identifying a structural issue. When you remove external stimulus, your body does not automatically feel peaceful. More often, it feels an immediate urge to move, check, or consume. This is not a character flaw. It is an evolutionary safety mechanism. As neuroendocrinologist Robert Sapolsky points out in research he highlights on stress, human physiology evolved to handle acute physical threats. Today, however, that same biological threat response is continuously activated by chronic, subtle pressures, unread messages, shifting responsibilities, and future uncertainties. Sapolsky notes that some of the highest stress levels occur in scenarios marked by high demands paired with low autonomy, responsibility without direct control. Modern life frequently puts us in this position, exposing us to endless external events while giving us very little direct leverage over them. To cope, we often rely on continuous stimulation. Scrolling, working, or consuming media gives us a synthetic sense of control. It keeps the brain occupied so we don't have to feel the underlying physical tension. Courage at this biological level is simply refusing to flee that minor discomfort. Rather than fighting your body's alarm, you can disarm it using a simple physiological lever: your breath. As Sapolsky explains, every time you inhale, your sympathetic nervous system minutely speeds up your heart rate. Every time you exhale, the parasympathetic nervous system activates through the vagus nerve, slowing the heart down. By making your exhales deliberately longer than your inhales, you send a direct, neurological signal to your brainstem that you are safe. You don't have to conquer your stress. You simply signal to your nervous system that it can stand down. Dimension 2, the unedited mind. Once the physical body settles, a second layer appears: psychological noise. Psychologist Csikszentmihalyi described this phenomenon as psychic entropy. When the mind is deprived of a specific task or external goal, attention naturally drifts toward disorder. Unplanned thoughts, old regrets, and future worries drift to the surface. Because this internal noise can feel uncomfortable, it is easy to see why most people instinctively reach for a distraction to cover it up. But if you have the stamina to remain seated without reaching for a shield, a deeper opportunity opens up. This brings us to Carl Jung's concept of the shadow. The shadow simply represents the parts of our psyche we tend to ignore during daily life: our unacknowledged fears, quiet insecurities, and unresolved past events. Jung suggested that trying to force a blank mind or fighting uncomfortable thoughts often backfires, driving those feelings deeper into the background. Meditation is not an act of war against your thoughts. It is not about suppressing the mind or conquering an internal enemy. Real bravery lies in disarmament. It is the willingness to sit completely still while uncomfortable thoughts arise, looking at them with quiet curiosity rather than panic or judgment. You don't fight the shadow, you simply stop running from it. As Jung noted, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Dimension 3, Practical Self-Governance. Knowing you need to navigate both biological restlessness and psychological noise is one thing. Doing it in real time during the messiness of life is another. Here we can look to the practical wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Epictetus, a slave-turned-Stoic philosopher, suggested dividing life into two clear categories: things that are within our direct influence and things that are not. Macroeconomic conditions, public opinion, and unexpected disruptions fall outside our direct control. Our own attention, impulses, and internal posture remain within our domain. Marcus Aurelius expressed a similar principle. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Sitting in stillness is the daily laboratory where this principle is tested. You practice creating a small, crucial gap between a stimulus and your response. An urge to move arises, but you simply observe it. An uncomfortable thought appears, but you let it pass without being carried away by it. You build a quiet, unshakable internal stability that stays with you long after you leave the room. A practical framework to explore. If you would like to test this practice and build your own internal stamina, you may want to consider this simple 4-step sequence. 1. Physiological calibration. Begin with the breath. Focus on making your exhalations longer than your inhalations, inhaling for 4 seconds and exhaling for 6 or 8. This disarms the acute stress alarm. 2. Disarmed observation. Do not attempt to force your mind into a blank void or fight incoming thoughts. Allow memories, anxieties, and task lists to surface naturally, viewing them simply as neutral data. 3. Non-reactive presence. Practice remaining physically still when an uncomfortable thought or an urge to move arises. Notice the sensation without offering an immediate physical or emotional reaction. 4. Gentle integration. Remind yourself that thoughts are proposals, not commands. By observing them with calm detachment, you reduce internal friction and restore clarity. Why it is worth it? The asymmetrical advantage. Why endure this discipline? Why make sitting quietly in a room a daily non-negotiable? Because in a hyperstimulated, perpetually outrage-driven world, the ability to maintain internal quiet is not merely a wellness habit. It is an asymmetrical advantage. From a biological perspective, the return on investment is immediate. As Robert Sapolsky's research on chronic stress demonstrates, the human body cannot sustain endless sympathetic activation without severe physiological costs. When you live in a constant state of micro-panic, your cardiovascular health degrades and your immune response weakens. By regularly activating the vagus nerve and disarming the stress response, you aren't just taking a mental break. You are protecting your physical hardware from premature decay. You are building biological resilience against a high-demand world. From a decision-making perspective, the mind that can sit in stillness becomes immune to emotional contagion. When a market crashes, a crisis erupts, or a team panics, the untrained mind reacts out of primitive threat bias, making hasty, emotionally driven errors. The mind trained in stillness creates a gap between stimulus and response. Throughout history, the figures who navigated extreme systemic noise were those who cultivated quiet sanctuaries within themselves. Abraham Lincoln, during the darkest hours of the Civil War, would regularly slip away to the solitary quiet of the soldier's home outside Washington, using total silence to clear his judgment and maintain moral clarity amid unspeakable pressure. Charles Darwin spent decades pacing the quiet, solitary sandwalk behind his home, deliberately isolating his mind from the noise of London to synthesize the vast complexity of natural selection. Marcus Aurelius wrote his meditations not in a tranquil study, but in a military tent on the freezing northern frontier of the Roman Empire, using quiet self-reflection to maintain steady governance while fighting a war and enduring a global pandemic. When you master the quiet room, you acquire what these minds possessed. You gain clarity during chaos. While others panic, your heart rate remains steady. You retain focus amid complexity. While others succumb to brain fog and distraction, your thinking stays sharp and linear. You make superior decisions under pressure. While others act on emotion, you act on signal. Conclusion: it takes very little effort to stay perpetually busy reacting to every chime, chasing every notification, and joining every collective panic. It takes a quiet kind of bravery to sit down, calm your nervous system, face your unedited mind, and claim absolute stewardship over your attention. While we cannot control the chaos of the outside world, we can always choose how we construct our internal environment. In doing so, you do not just survive the noise, you make ground towards wisdom. Like most of life, the answer is not easy to implement, but it is worth it. So leverage the knowledge of great minds and implement their timeless principles. Learn more and build your framework at strategyofone.com. Recommended readings: Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, Robert M. Sapolsky. Behave, the Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst, Robert M. Sapolsky. Man and His Symbols, Carl G. Jung. The Undiscovered Self, Carl G. Jung. Modern Man in Search of a Soul, Carl G. Jung. Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Discourses and Selected Writings, Epictetus. Meditations, Marcus Aurelius. Team of Rivals, Doris Kearns Goodwin,